Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Pits of Motor Chaos. This is your host, Dave, and I got online special guest, Nostalgia Nitro funny car driver, Bill Windham. How's it going, Bill?
Good. How you doing, Dave?
Pretty good. So how's the weather out there in Cali today, Bill?
You know what? It's been late spring, actually. It kind of came late this year, but it's been beautiful. It's mid-70s to 80 degrees for the next week or so it's looking good. Finally.
Yeah. So how many races are you getting so far this year?
Well, we originally had planned on doing more than we were going to end up doing, but we had scheduled about 14. We're going to trim that down a bit. We actually were going to be in Boise this weekend, but we're kind of regrouping, having some equipment issues, so we're working on that, going to hopefully get that resolved by the weekend. And then we decided that we'd do a little testing and try to sort a few more things out before we get back out there. So we're pretty much taking the next month off, and then we'll get back at it. But we got a real busy summer coming up, so probably going to end up doing about 10 races this year.
So where did you run last, in Arizona?
Yeah, last race was Tucson. We qualified for the show. Again, we're still kind of sorting things out. This is still a relatively new car, so we ran pretty good. Our best run, you're a little bit in the altitude there, but we went 593, put us in the number 8 spot. Unfortunately, we had Bobby Cottrell first round, and they set a new track record, and they have been the tough guys to beat this year. So he was number 1 qualifier with, I think they went a 565, so it was a tough matchup.
Oh, yeah, Bucky's got that car dialed in good this year.
Yeah, Bucky's been doing it a long time. I ran in the top alcohol ranks for a while, so I've known Bucky for a long time and known, of him. And he's a tough competitor, and they got about a 10-year head start on us, with this nitro nostalgia thing. So we're working hard to catch up, but they got that thing dialed in, and they're definitely the car to beat right now.
So what's the fastest run time you'd had with this car so far?
Well, officially we had a 576 at the Hot Rod Reunion. We have an unofficial 565. I say unofficial because we didn't get a time slip in that run, but we ran the numbers in the computer with Todd Baton from Racepack, and it came out that I knew it was a really good run, so I was real disappointed not to get the time slip. But, so officially I'd say a 76. Unofficially, we've been in the 60s.
Okay, so now, Bill, I'm going to take you back a bit. How and when did this whole thing in drag racing begin for you?
Oh, boy. Let's see. I started drag racing when I was 17. Had a 65 GTO. We kind of did some street racing back then. We'd take it to the track once in a while. When I was about 19, a friend of mine and I went in partners, and we had a 62 Nova with a small block that we ran in a 1090 class. And from there, I just kept moving forward. Ran a super gas car for a while, a 67 Camaro. Took some time off, built up business, and when I came back, I worked on a top sportsman car and helped build it, and then we dominated pretty well with that car, and then we moved up into what's now is known as Outlaw Pro Mod, but I crew chiefed an Outlaw Pro Mod car for several years, and we were pretty dominant in Northern California. We were definitely the guys to beat back then. And then from there, I ended up buying the world record-holding injected nitro dragster, a fuel car, and we ran the tour around the country with that car. It had the record. It went 510 at about 278 back in 2004. So we campaigned that for a couple years, and then I partnered up with David Baca. We ran a top fuel operation for a while, the Mach 1 Air Services top fuel car, and then from there I drove a pro stock car on the national tour. So I've been through the ranks a bit.
You said you drove an alcohol car before too, right?
Yeah, I had before this nostalgia funny car, I had a blown on alcohol. It was a 6-second car. Sold it to a gentleman, and he actually is in Topeka. He bought Richard Townsend's nostalgia funny car too, so he's got my old altered and the funny car.
Ah, okay.
But that was a real good car. I mean, we won a lot of races, and there was in Northern California, the Governor's Cup was like the race to win for years and years, and I chased that thing forever, and I finally got my first Governor's Cup win with that car in 2010. And, I really enjoyed running that car, but it was time to step up back into nitro, and so we sold that car and built this funny car.
So what year did the Shakedown come about?
I bought the car as a roller just about 2 years ago. Probably, we built that thing over the course of the next 9 months to a year. So we stripped everything down and basically just used the chassis. Had to do some upgrades to the chassis and so forth. Essentially we've been racing it about a year. But it took us about a year to put it together.
And it's a Z28?
Yep, 69 Camaro Z28, Donnie Reeves body, Victory chassis. It's got a TFX 496 cubic inch motor. It's got all the best parts in it. And it's going to be a very competitive car, I'm sure. We have barely been tickling this thing, and it's run some pretty impressive numbers so far, but we still have yet to tune this thing all the way up. So we're getting close.
What size fuel pump you got in that thing?
Well, they run everybody has to run the same fuel pump, which is a 21-gallon pump. You can run a couple different brands. We run a Rage pump in it, but they're limited to 21 gallons.
Now, with the burnout and the run, how many gallons of nitro methane you use?
Well, on a good full pass, it'll go through about between 6 and 8 gallons.
Yeah, so... And then nitro's going up too, price-wise.
Yeah, it sure has. We're getting some sticker shock right now. This happened a long time ago. Back in the mid-2000s, I think, we were getting nitro back then for about $550 a barrel. And then there was a shortage, and then it went all the way up to $1,200 a barrel. And then eventually came back down to a more reasonable price, which I think was in the $800 range. But yeah, this year here, it's really going through the roof. So hopefully, at some point this year, the price starts to come back down. I'm not sure what triggered this one. The first time we had this kind of a shortage, it was because some plant in China blew up where they make it. And this time, I don't know exactly what the reasoning is, but yeah, it's gotten up to, it's around $1,500 a barrel right now.
Yeah, so how did you come up with the name of Shakedown?
It's funny, it came to me one night, I was trying to think of a name, that's one of the cool things about the nostalgia class itself, is it's kind of a throwback deal, and back in the day, there were a lot of drivers that were, became characters, and the cars themselves had names and so forth, so I was just trying to think of a name, and I think what it was is, we were getting close to finishing the car, and we're going to go out and make some shakedown runs in it, and that popped into my head, and I thought, that's not a bad name. So, it kind of just took.
Yeah, someone, and I think it was like the Ground Pounding Thunder Cars group, they're talking about how the Big Show cars, there's no more names like back in the day now, it's all the sponsors.
Yeah, it's a shame. I've done the Big Show thing, and it's pretty corporate out there nowadays, which, I was a team owner with a top fuel car, and I've been a driver and all that kind of stuff out there, so I get it. It's just, you got to have funding to go out and do this and make it work, and it's so expensive to run on the national tour. But, yeah, looking back now, it's gotten pretty corporate, and I think it's taken away some of that individuality, and you got the mega teams, and it's kind of what's cool about what we're doing now is we're throwing it back to the old days, and these cars have a lot of character, and they do have names, and there's some throwback cars out there that are replicas of cars that ran back in the day and that kind of stuff. And it's, as a fan of the sport, which I still am, I enjoy watching it even if I'm not racing. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, then with the Big Show, it's like so expensive, and you go to nostalgia racing, practically get the whole family in for the price of one Big Show ticket.
Yeah, it's expensive. It blows me away. But, when I was on the Pro Tour, living out in California, there's so many things to do here that racing is not as big as it is in the Midwest and the South and that. And so when I started traveling on tour stuff, I was just blown away. Some people, like in the Midwest and stuff, they plan their whole family vacation around it. And it's pretty darn expensive. And if you have a couple of kids and you're trying to take the family out to the races for the weekend, you know, it's expensive. You're in for a pretty expensive weekend. Not to mention the price of concessions and all that, and souvenirs and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
But I can tell you, with our stuff here, I mean, the UNFC series that we're running now, I mean, for $20 or $25 to get a ticket to get in, it's the best show going, I think. I mean, it's, you know, we've had some great races. Last year, there was just there were some moments where it literally, I got goosebumps again, which, you know, again, I didn't get that when I was on the Big Show tour, but doing this I do. And just watching it, places like Boise and Seattle and those places that we raced, watching the crowd's reaction and, you know, Nitro at night, and the show was awesome. So that's a good thing for the buck for $25.
Oh, yeah. Then another good thing about the nostalgia racing is you can get closer to the pits and not have to stand behind a rope.
Yeah, well, you know, I will say this: the Big Show stuff, the drivers are pretty accessible. I got a lot of friends on the tour, and they're pretty personable as compared to NASCAR or Indy or anything like that. So you can get close, but I think with the nostalgia stuff, you get even closer to it.
Yeah.
And it's a throwback like the old days. And I grew up in Northern California, and my first race ever was at Fremont Raceway. And, you know, I remember being there, I think I was about 16, and watching Jungle Jim and Don Schumacher going through the lights at nighttime on fire. It was the craziest thing I'd ever seen. But, you know, they were all pretty accessible back then. You know, you could walk around and you could meet your favorite driver and that kind of stuff. And that's what we're doing, too. So it's pretty cool.
Okay, now that you mentioned Jungle Jim and Schumacher, who were your, like, inspirational drivers when you're back in the day?
You know, Jungle Jim was always a favorite. I had a lot of favorites back then. But Jungle Jim, Big Daddy Don Garlitz, I got a chance to meet him a couple times at Sacramento Raceway. But Jungle Jim was a great showman. He didn't really win many races. Ed Ace McCullough, Snake, Tom the Mongoose McEwen, these guys were all, you know, since I was 16 years old, I always wanted to drive a nitro funny car watching these guys. But, yeah, I think Jungle Jim is, and he's a lot of people's favorite just because he was such a showman. And I get it, you know, this is entertainment for the crowd, so he just did a heck of a job entertaining people, and he won a lot of people over, even though he wasn't one of the drivers that was winning a lot of races. He sure did put on a show. Yeah.
How about Dale Poldy?
Dale Poldy, yeah, he's a buddy of mine. I actually, Dale, he's, Ron Capps is one of my best buddies, and I consider Ron to be probably the best funny car driver of all time, but you know, it's Dale Poldy's right there. I mean, Dale Poldy is a phenomenal race car driver and driven so many things, and you know, that guy was extremely talented. Plus, you know, Dale tuned his own stuff and built a lot of his own motors. He did a lot of things after besides just drive the car. So, yeah, he's definitely one of the heroes.
Yeah, you mentioned Ron Capps. He's one of the guys that'll come up to the rope and talk to the fans all the time.
Yeah, no, Ron hasn't lost sight of you know, who he is. If people don't know, you know, Ron paid his dues, and people aren't aware of it. But boy, when he first started with Daryl Hitchman in a fuel car in the top alcohol ranks, he was, you know, back in the day when you were piling 6 crew guys into one Motel 6 room, and he was having to drive the truck, and then he moved up into Roger Prim deal, and he worked on the car, and he, you know, serviced everything and drove the big rig and all that kind of stuff. So he paid his dues, and he hasn't forgotten where he's come from. Yep. So he kept himself pretty grounded and down to earth, and you know, like I said, he's one of my best buddies, and we do a lot of things together. And I got to tell you, he's you know, he is, in my mind, the best funny car driver that ever drove one of these things. So it's pretty cool to have somebody like him that, you know, we talk about things, and he gives me pointers, and you know, he's normally right. As much as it aggravates me sometimes, you know, he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah. So now, Bill, how many crew members do you have, and who are your crew members?
We've got, let's start off with my crew chief, Glenn Hutchison. His father was Rex Hutchison, who was part of our team as well. Unfortunately, Rex passed away during the Hot Rod reunion 2 years ago, and Glenn's taken over the ranks, you know, the reins over at Rex Hutchison Race Engines. So Glenn's a hell of a crew chief. He's a great machinist, engine builder. They do a lot of the drag boats. They do a lot of NASCAR stuff. His personal sprint car won the King of the Wing Series last year. He has a driver who drives it, and he does all of our machine work, and he runs the, you know, he's the crew chief. He's in charge out there. I've got a gentleman by the name of Mark Tolgren. We call him Big Mark. Big Mark's very versatile. He does a lot of things at the shop, gets us prepared, keeps an eye on a lot of the safety issues, mixes our fuel, does a lot of things like that. Bill DeMartin, he is our bottom end guy. Big Ron Hale. I got some big guys in my crew, man. Big Ron, I think he's 6'8", about 350 pounds. Big Mark, he's 6'6", I think, or 6'5". So everybody's got a name big on this team. Big Ron does cylinder heads on one side. I've got a guy named Pat Cheatley out of Toronto, Canada, that we fly in that does cylinder heads on the other side. Great kid. Tony Schultz. Tony Schultz has been out there for a long time. She's helped. She worked on Dan Horan's team. She's worked on Wally Giavia's team. She's been around the sport for a long time, and she does a lot of stuff. We're actually she's kind of assisting on the clutch on this car. Takes care of parachutes, tires, inspects the chassis. She does a lot of she's actually come a long way. So she joined our team. We're actually teaching her things to work on the car. She's doing a great job at it. Let's see. We've got Mike Mancino. He helps us out at the shop. He's a local. He's a foreman for a roofing company here in Sacramento area. He does a lot of work on our car as well. So we've got a big team. We've got about 7 people on the team, besides myself.
Now, do you have any sponsors for the car?
Yeah, we do. We've got a few actually. Rex Hutchison Race Engines being one of them. Royal Purple Oil. We've got this year here. We got CRC Brake Cleans come on board. Gojo Hand Cleaner. And let's see, what am I missing here? We've got Autolite Spark Plugs. They've been with us a couple years now. So, yeah, we've got some sponsors. It's really hard to go out and run at this level here without some help. Yeah, that's for sure.
So now, Bill, what was it like for you to get behind the wheel for the first time of a nitro funny car?
I got to tell you, it's funny because I've driven some pretty fast cars. I've driven pro mods, and my A-Fuel car was a 5-second car as well. But there's something different about a funny car. I mean, when you're up there and they fire the motor and that body comes down, it's just, it's as good as it gets in drag racing. There's just nothing like it. That's probably the defining moment when the motor fires and the body comes down. That's when I know it's real. At that point there, it's just like the lights on, and you're in for a ride. It's different than any car I've ever driven. It's pretty violent in there. It's hard to see when you stand on the throttle, but there is no better feeling. This is something I've always wanted to do, and it hasn't let me down.
So now, when you get ready for a weekend of drag racing with this car, what goes into preparation for you?
Well, it's funny. We were just having that conversation. We did a lot of stuff in the last 6 months. We had to put together a new shop. We have a new trailer, new hauler. We've had to do a ton of work. So we worked all winter long, and we're still working on some things. And it's been a huge accomplishment, but we're still at a point where we're, with the new trailer setup, you're still getting things organized and, trying to put things back in its proper place and labeling and doing all that stuff. So we're still working on that stuff. But we have a regular routine, which is Wednesday night is shop night. We get started about 6 o'clock and we work till about 9 or 10. And then most Saturdays are shop day. And so we do that, and then when it's time for us to go racing, we may add an evening to that to get things loaded up and so forth. But we typically go back through, freshen up all of our motors, make sure we got all the clutch floaters and diffs and so forth. Everything's been machined and everything's ready to go. The clutch packs are ready. Build racks of rods and pistons, throughout the week and get everything loaded in the trailer. So it's a process. There's a lot of work involved.
So now, can you tell us some of your favorite tracks to run on?
It's funny because Sonoma is my home track as far as a major track goes. And we're going to be testing there in a few weeks. But I didn't realize, I've been racing there for years until I went on the national tour, that's one of the best tracks in the entire country. It's my favorite track by far, and I didn't realize that it was, such a good track till I went out and saw some of the other ones. There's great tracks around the country. Charlotte, North Carolina, that's like a Disneyland for racers there. I mean, it's incredible. Bruton Smith tracks. In Las Vegas, Sonoma's owned by Bruton Smith. But yeah, I would say Sonoma's my favorite. Love doing, the stuff back east. What we're doing these days is basically the West Coast. And on a smaller scale, I think Boise's probably one of my favorite tracks to race at for what we're doing today. And the fans there are phenomenal. The new family that runs that track just does a great job. It's super clean. Everything's freshly painted. The bathrooms are clean. The facility's organized. And the fans are just incredible there. I've never seen anything like it. Last year we did at the August race, they do a autograph session for the drivers there, and it's 2 nights in a row. It's about an hour and a half long, and they have to cut it off. The people are still lined up. It's incredible. There's no place like it.
Wow, that's just great. So now, where do you get all your fire safety stuff from, like your fire suit and your shoes and gloves and all this stuff?
For the most part, I'm dealing with DJ safety these days. My suit, actually, we're getting ready to build a brand new suit because the other one's about worn out, but that was a Simpson. But yeah, just about all my stuff now comes from DJ Safety, Southern California.
Yeah. Now, what kind of tires do you have on your funny car?
We're running Mickey Thompson's now. We've been experimenting with the Hoosier. We haven't quite figured out how to make that tire work. It's a little more aggressive than the Mickey Thompson or the Goodyear. But right now, as it stands, we're running the Mickey Thompson for the most part.
Okay, so now, Bill, what would you consider to be the milestones of your drag racing career?
There's one that stands out. I was driving a Pro Stock car, and I was paired up with Warren Johnson at the U.S. Nationals in qualifying, and we both ran the same number. Neither one of us made the show. We were like 17th and 18th, I think. But I remember being in the car, backing up from the burnout ticket. I never thought I'd see the day where I'd be paired up with somebody like Warren Johnson at the U.S. Nationals. That was pretty incredible.
Oh, yeah, that's a legendary Pro Stock guy right there.
Yeah, for sure.
So now, have you had any accidents or near accidents in your career?
Yeah, I had one that was actually pretty famous there for a while. And when I was driving the Pro Stock car in Las Vegas, one of the qualifying sessions, it got out of shape, and part of it was driver error on my part. It was actually the second race I'd ever run in a Pro Stock car, but there was a distraction, and it started with the starting line. When I went to do the burnout, almost every Pro Stock driver's done this at least once in their career, but when you start the motor, you start it up, and then you turn the fuel pump on. You flip the toggle switch, you turn the pump on. And it's because you have minimal power on the car, and it's an onboard battery and stuff like that. Well, I forgot to turn the pump on after I started the motor. So during the burn, I ran out of gas. And again, a lot of Pro Stock drivers have done this at some point. Well, anyways, when I ran out of gas, my crew chief, Eddie Granacci, was on the radio. He said, "No problem, turn the pump on. We'll back it up and do another burnout." And the way the rule reads, you can do a second burnout. You just can't cross the starting line during that burnout. So we had backed the car all the way up in the water box, and then the starter got in front of the car, wouldn't let me do the burnout, which he was totally in the wrong. So I was getting pretty upset in the car because he wouldn't get out of the way. So at that point, we had to roll up after being in the water box, and I'm thinking, okay, the tires are wet. I got to stage this car. And my crew chief's on the radio going, oh man. So I'm going, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do here. So I went ahead and staged the car up. And I was thinking that as soon as I let the clutch out, this thing's going to want to make a hard turn because the tires are wet. Well, it didn't. It actually went dead straight. And now the shifts come so quick in those cars that I was running behind on my shift, and I hit the chip, and it dumped a little gas out of the header on the right side, got underneath the tire, and it got me out of shape. So I'm pulling gears. I think I was just got into high gear, so I was doing probably about 180, and this thing got out of shape bad, and I had to correct 7 times. It got on 2 wheels side to side, and I didn't realize what a big deal it was at the time, but I drove Formula cars in the past too, so I had a little bit of experience in road racing, and I was able to save it from crashing. Those cars are notorious for flipping because they don't have any downforce. Well, after the whole episode came to an end, I brought it to a stop, didn't hit anything. And it was a bigger deal than I had realized, and they showed on the ESPN all weekend long. And when I saw the video, it was actually on YouTube, and I think it had 1.5 million hits on it. and then they kept removing it. And I don't know if it was NHRA or ESPN kept removing it from YouTube, saying it was being used for illegal purposes. But anyways, that was probably, I was most notorious for that particular run. And for a long time there, that was every time I saw anybody, Dave Reef or Lewis Bloom or any of those guys from NHRA, they used to call me Thrills and Spills because of that episode. I actually made the Thrills and Spills CD at the end of the year for NHRA that year.
Wow.
Yeah. That didn't crash a car.
That's good. So now, Bill, we're going to get into some fun questions here.
Go ahead.
If someone were to give you $200 million and say, Bill, can you build me a drag race track, where would you want to build a new track at, and what kind of features would you want to put into that track?
I'll tell you the truth, man. Bruton Smith has done such a great job. That was patterned after one of his tracks, and probably as far as where I'd put it, I'd probably want to put it in Texas, maybe around Austin or somewhere like that. I definitely wouldn't do it in California. Too many problems here, but a place like Texas, like Austin, somewhere like that. A lot of race fans in Texas, and Bruton Smith would be the guy to talk to or pattern it after something like that. So yeah, that'd be way cool.
Would you want to put any special features in the track?
Boy, I can tell you what I wouldn't do. I wouldn't do the 4-wide thing. I'm not a big fan of that. As far as features go, I don't know I would do anything different. If you look at some of the best tracks in the country, like a Bristol or a Charlotte or even Sonoma, I just think, having super clean facilities and obviously a great racing surface and comfortable stands and things like that would be key. As far as anything beyond that, I wouldn't mind seeing something with a little more entertainment. I think people, when they buy a ticket for the weekend, I think we could add to the entertainment value, when cars aren't running, that kind of thing.
Yeah, stuff for the kids.
Maybe it's that plus maybe a stage or put a band out there or something. But I think you could add to it that way.
Would you put the grandstands? Would you put covers over the grandstands?
Well, boy, I guess if it was in the budget, that wouldn't be at least part of it. Like some of the tracks are like that now, where you have at least partial coverage. I think Sonoma does because the suites are above it, that kind of thing. That's probably not a bad idea. I just think that for the most part, it's probably the expense of it's what makes it difficult.
Yeah. So now, Bill, do you have any hobbies outside of drag racing?
Yeah, I do a little fishing. I got a couple of boats I never have time to use. Bass boat. Do a little bass fishing. Ride the Harley is probably one of my favorite things to do. The area that I live on the way up to Lake Tahoe from Sacramento, and it's the gold country up here. So there's a bunch of where the gold discovery site is. It's about 15 minutes from my house, but there's a bunch of old mining towns up here with saloons, just like they were back in the 1800s, that are still there. So it's kind of fun to jump on the Harley and go hit those things on a weekend or something. So those are probably my two favorite things.
Yeah, the wife and I love going fishing too.
Is that right? Yeah, I've got I can almost hit Folsom Lake with a golf ball. It's so close to my house, but I wish I had more time to get out and do some fishing because I've been so busy,
Yeah, you should get together with John Hale and go fishing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know John loves fishing.
Yeah, I saw that he's on my Facebook page, so yeah, I think he's somewhere fishing this week.
So, Bill, do you have a greatest competitor?
I'm sorry?
Do you have a greatest competitor?
Yeah, I'm extremely competitive, always have been. And that's why this car, I knew we were going to have a learning curve with it, and it gets frustrating because I want to be right there with the top contenders, and I know we're going to make it to that point, but, we still got some more work to do to get there. But, yeah, I'm extremely competitive, and everything I do is to go out there and win. I'm not one of those guys that just wants to say I went racing that weekend. I expect to win. And I've been pretty fortunate. I've won a lot of races, both as a crew chief and as a driver, over my career. So I don't plan on stopping anytime soon.
So since you've been driving a Shakedown, who's been your greatest competitor out there?
It's funny. I got a lot of buddies out there. Jason Rupert's a good buddy, and, love racing with those guys. Bobby Cottrell. Bobby and I both ran 7.0 Pro, so he had a front engine dragster, and I had the altered. Bobby right now is the guy to beat. I mean, that car is just, been running flawlessly, and he's doing a fantastic job driving it. I mean, I knew he'd make a good driver when he was, when basically he got the phone call to drive that car. I knew it wouldn't take him long, and it didn't. He's one of the toughest competitors out there. But there's a lot of really good guys. Wally Giaviz, all those guys over there are great guys in that camp. So there's, I think, probably the two toughest guys out there right now. Well, there's more than two. There's probably at least three, and you got Ryan Hodgson, you got Bobby Cottrell, and you got Jason Rupert. Those guys are all pretty capable of running in the 50s at any given moment. So I would say they're the toughest competitors.
Now, throughout your career, have you won a lot of trophies?
Yeah, in fact, I'm in my office now looking at a few. But yeah, I've won a fair amount.
So now, if you could do time traveling, go back in time, Bill, would you do anything differently?
I don't think so. I think, well, I should say that one thing I probably, at the time I decided to drive the Pro Stock car, was Kenny Koretsky and I decided to be teammates together, and I had an opportunity with the sponsorship that I had to actually drive a nitro funny car. And so while I always wanted to drive a Pro Stock car, business-wise, it doesn't make near as much sense. So I think I would have probably gotten in the nitro funny car instead if I were to go back and change anything.
Now, do you have a most embarrassing moment in your drag racing career?
Let's see. Most embarrassing moment. Yeah, actually, I have never red lit in a competition in my entire career until this last year, and I did it twice. And the first time I've ever done, I left before the tree activated in round one a year ago at this weekend's race at Boise against Mike Peck, and that car ran its biggest number, and I had him covered by 2/10, and I lost because I left before the tree activated. And that to me is extremely embarrassing because there is absolutely no excuse for that.
So what's your favorite food to eat, Bill?
Let's see. Favorite food. I'm a seafood lover, so I would say lobster's probably at the top of my list. Nothing like a good lobster with a fillet to go with it, so that's probably my favorite meal.
Oh, yeah, surf and turf.
Yep, little surf and turf.
What's your favorite beverage?
Oh, let's see. If we're talking alcoholic, beverage, I like, I'm a vodka drinker if it comes to cocktail time, but as far as beer goes, Pacifico is my favorite beer. So I don't drink a lot, and I don't drink that often, but when I do, it's normally either a vodka cocktail or a Pacifico. So
what about non-alcoholic? What do you like to drink?
Let's see. Every once in a while I have a Dr. Pepper. It's probably my soda of choice. I drink water all day long, so I'm constantly drinking water, and then, maybe a Gatorade here and there.
So, what's your favorite music?
Oh, I'm a rock guy. In fact, it's funny because I like all forms of rock, classic rock, and a lot of current stuff too. And it's Caps and I, he knows a lot of rock guys, so I've been fortunate enough to tag along with him and hit some concerts with him and stuff, and even some of the hardcore punk rock. I mean, we went to the Pomona race this year, and we went to on Wednesday night. We went down to see Dope play at the Viper Room, that kind of stuff. But I've always been a rock guy. But I have a pretty diverse taste. I like a little bit of country. I like a lot of the old Motown stuff. So I guess I got a pretty diverse. But if it came right down to it, I would say I'm a rock guy.
So do you have a favorite classic rock band of all time?
Doobie Brothers.
Doobie Brothers.
Yeah, one of my all-time favorites. I've seen them in concert probably 3 or 4 times over the years.
So now, when the '80s were around, did you get into the '80s hair rock bands?
Yeah, in fact, I got a chance to meet. I was a big fan of Def Leppard, and my one of my business partners we have a apparel company that we had on the NHRA tour called Petrolhead, and my partner in it was he used to be the lead guitar player for Lifehouse, and before that, Savage Garden. And we were, he lives in Las Vegas, and we were a couple years ago. We were talking about about music or whatever, and I was saying something about Def Leppard. I said I had tickets to see him twice, and I never got to see him. And he goes, oh, well, hey, listen, Phil Collins, the lead guitar player, he and I used to be roommates. And I go, what? And he goes, yeah, we were roommates in L.A. for a couple of years when he first came here from Australia. So turns out that Def Leppard was going to do a 2-week, what do you call it, at the Las Vegas Hard Rock. They were going to, do a 2-week concert series there. So we went to see him, and then afterwards went backstage to meet the guys, and Phil Collins, super nice guy. So that was kind of a big moment for me because I was a huge Def Leppard fan from the 80s.
So what do you think of Joe Wallace band?
Joe's awesome. I like Joe. I always enjoy when they come out to play for us, man. And I'm one of those guys that really appreciates what they go through to get there and set up and do what they do. So yeah, Joe Wallace is awesome.
Yeah. So, do you watch TV at all, Bill?
Yeah, a little bit when I have time. Actually, I was just before this phone call, I was watching one of my favorite movies is on. It was Tombstone.
Who plays it? Is that Sharon Stone?
Tombstone.
Ah, does Sharon Stone play in that movie or no?
No, this was about Wyatt Earp, and that was Kurt Russell and Val
Kilmer. Okay, I got you now.
Yeah, it's an old cowboy movie, that's one of my all-time favorites, and it just happened to be on TV a little while ago when I was having dinner.
So, Western movies are your favorite kind of movie?
Yep. Yeah, I think so. Those are comedies. Like
the old Clint Eastwood movies?
Yeah, I like a lot of the old westerns. I grew up with the era of Bonanza when I was a kid and Gunsmoke being on TV and all that stuff. So I just think I kind of have an affinity for the old westerns.
Do you watch any TV shows like the Duck Dynasty, any kind of stuff like that?
Every once in a while. I don't really watch many series anymore. I kind of like, I'm kind of one of those guys that I'm really inquisitive, so I like history stuff, and like I'll watch the Smithsonian Channel and watch some stuff on there, some of the History Channel stuff, and then occasionally I have watched Duck Dynasty a couple times, and Pawn Stars and a few of those shows, and then I'll watch Count's Customs. I kind of became friends with Horny Mike, met him in Vegas a few times down there, so that show I'll watch once in a while.
Now, do you have a favorite actor?
I think Robert De Niro is probably one of my favorites. Some of his movies, I think, I always like the gangster type movies, and he's probably one of my favorite actors. Him and Clint Eastwood, I would say.
Now, on a race day, do you have any certain eating habits, or you just eat regularly?
I used to eat regularly, and the thing is, I have a super fast metabolism, so I have to eat quite a bit, otherwise I'll start getting weak in the knees, And it's funny because I used to on race day, I would think I needed to eat a lot of food, to maintain my endurance for the day. And then I was actually asking Caps one day. I go, hey man, when you're on race day, not qualifying, but race day, I go, what do you do on race day for food? What do you do? He goes, you know what? He goes, I asked Snake this when I was driving for him, and he goes, I asked him, what should I do for diet on race day? And Snake said, hey, a hungry lion hunts harder. And so Caps goes, so now what I do now is I literally eat Quest protein bars and drink bottles of water, and that's it on race day. And I swear, when I started doing that, in my altar, we have to leave off idle with no launch control, and I was getting down to where I was cutting 30 lights in that car. And I swear the diet had something to do with it. I think when your body is hungry, I think you actually are a little more aggressive.
Interesting.
Yeah, that was a good piece of advice, and it's funny because Snake gave it to Caps, and Caps gave it to me.
Yeah. So now, if you were in drag racing, what do you think you'd be doing, Bill?
Oh boy, I really don't know. As far as other than I've been a business guy my whole adult life. I've been self-employed probably since my mid-20s.
So what is the fondest memory of your drag racing career? You still there, Bill? Hello? We lost him, folks. Hold on, let me call him back.
gotcha.
Yeah. I was asking a question. I was like, Bill?
Sorry about that. Where I live, the cell service is a little sporadic at times.
Yeah. So what would you consider the fondest memory of your drag racing career, Bill?
My fondest memory?
Yeah.
Let's see. Probably, I mean, I've had some great times out there, and I've been able to do a lot of stuff in the sport that most people just dream of. But I think the first year I was on the Pro Tour, you know, Ron Capps and I were buddies before I even went on the tour. When I first met Ron, I was still crew chief in Pro Mods in Northern California and stuff. But that first year on the tour, you know, Ron and I hung out a lot, and I got to see all, you know, he knew everywhere to go for dinner and all the things to do across the country and every town we rolled into, and he had it all pretty dialed in. So I think that first year on the tour I have pretty fond memories of that because it was kind of a learning curve as far as everything that goes on with the tour, and there's a lot that goes on besides just driving the car. A lot of travel involved and things like that, and, you know, it's cool because every once in a while we roll into a town where some particular band's playing that he's friends with, and we go watch them and that kind of stuff. So I think that's probably my fondest memories of the first year on the Pro Tour.
Cool. Now, if people that are listening to the interview right now want to find your schedule, what's the best way for them to find your schedule?
I usually, haven't really, that's probably not a bad idea. I should post the actual full schedule on our Facebook page. I think on our Shakedown funny car page, we've got about 8,000 followers now. So I usually post on there what races are coming up and how we're doing when we're at the race, that kind of thing there. So that's probably the best place. But basically, we're going to do all the UNFC races. So if you look at on the website, the United Nitro Funny Cars, the schedule for those races are up on their website. And we're doing some of the Heritage Series races, like the Bakersfield races, and then the Boise race in August and stuff. So those are the two schedules that we normally maintain. And then we're here in Sacramento, so we'll do a couple of races out here, which are smaller events that aren't part of our series.
Okay, well, Bill, I want to thank you very much for your time for doing this interview tonight.
Yeah, sure. My pleasure. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
And do you have any final words for the people that are listening in right now?
Just listen, if you get out there and you get a chance and you can come out and watch us run, you know, it's a good bang for the buck for $25. I guarantee you won't be disappointed. Next race it'll be Spokane, 4th of July. You know, they're going to have fireworks that night, and that's a great little racetrack there. And from there, we go to Seattle the following weekend. So if you can make it out there, come on out, folks.
All right, one more question, Bill. How important do you think it is to get the kids to come out to watch drag racing?
Well, I'm sorry, what was the question again, Dave?
How important do you think it is for the kids to get out there and watch drag racing?
I think it's real important. We obviously want to keep the legacy of the sport moving forward, and that's why I think I was so impressed with the Boise track, because there's a lot of families that go to that race and pack that place out, and they bring their kids, and they are just, you know, these kids up there are just really into it. And of all the places I've raced, I've just never seen anything like it. So they've done a great job. I wish, you know, a lot of other tracks would do the same thing, and I'm not sure what their secret is up there, but boy, oh boy, there's lots of kids, and they are really into it. So it's extremely important. I think, you know, it's like myself. I started at a young age, and it kept me occupied. You know, it kept me out of trouble, working on cars, working with your hands in general, whether it's cars or anything else. I think it's real important to keep kids busy with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think when they need to get off the video games and all that stuff.
Yep, absolutely.
Once they come see a Nitro funny car, that'll be it. They'll be hooked on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think once they see it, you know, after that, they're going to be a fan.
Yeah, because even if they watch it on TV, then that doesn't do justice.
Yep. No, it never has. It never has. I mean, and everybody I've taken some celebrities to their first drag race, and everybody I've taken them, you know, if I get the opportunity to take them to the start line or something like that, every one of them have turned into a fan. They're just blown away by what takes place. And I've even been at some of the tracks back east when some of the NASCAR guys showed up. I was at U.S. Nationals one year when Tony Stewart went to for the first time, and he walked away and thought we were out of our minds. And Martin Truex at Charlotte one time, same thing. So, I mean, everybody that comes to see it in person, it's so much different in person, and it's such a spectacle to see that, everybody I've ever taken has turned into a fan of the sport.
Yeah. Well, Bill, I want to thank you again for your time, and I wish you the best of luck with the season.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it.
No problem, buddy. You have a great night.
Thanks, you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.